back to the Howler podcast. I'm Chelsea.
I'm Mary.
And welcome to 2025, a brand new year.
A new year.
A
Can't
new
wait. I mean, actually, we're saying can't wait because we are recording this in December. So we both are anticipating the holiday right around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And okay, so many things. I have a lot of thoughts today that I had in the car upon driving here, knowing this episode is coming. But firstly, since the holidays are next week, Chelsea, you are.
I'm home in Yorktown, Virginia.
Fun fact about Chelsea. I was like, wait,
Uh,
does she want to share this detail about her
oh
life?
yeah. I mean, I share it. It's okay. If you're watching, you can see I'm in a bedroom because I am working. This is my childhood bedroom, but it definitely did not look like this when I occupied the room.
Okay,
But
take us back like to your a couple years childhood.
well, so actually, when we first moved into this house, when I was like 7 or 8, I was in the bigger bedroom because I was the oldest child. I had the bigger bedroom, and then I really, really wanted bunk beds. I don't know why. I just wanted bunk beds. I
For
had this.
yourself.
Well, I don't know. I think in my head, like my sister and I would share the room, and then this room would be like a playroom or something. But like,
Okay.
I didn't want to actually share a bedroom with my sister. You know what I mean? But anyway, my parents agree to get bunk beds. So then I have bunk beds in my room. But come like middle school, I don't want bunk beds. You know what I mean? And no one's sleeping. Like, it's just me in that room, my sister in this room. So then I think sometime in middle school, maybe like seventh or eighth grade, we switched rooms and I got this room and my sister had the bigger room with the bunk beds. And so when I was in this room, it was like a blue. Blue's my favorite color. So it was like blue on the wall. And the theme was blue, purple, and green because those are my three favorite colors.
Okay,
So,
naturally.
like the bedspread was like this like vibrant blue, purple, green. It was just like it was so loud.
Okay, well, this has been a fun little blast in Chelsea's past,
Yeah.
inspired by her recording location today. Okay, but also, yes, you're right. So everyone's listening to this in January. People are probably setting New Year's resolutions. We should do just like a really quick debrief.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of this year on this podcast, you declared that your resolution was going to be, well, everything you want is on the other side of this. Said a
Motivate.
little bit more eloquently, but I think that was the gist.
Yes, it was the person you want to be or something like that is on the other side of this moment. Mostly just trying to get me to calm down, take a breath, be patient, but also like challenge myself to like just get through the hard moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um like I said in my check-in, I don't know if I was like super intentional around thinking about it throughout the year, but I do think I've been able to like work through some really challenging situations and not like be super reactive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do think I'm making progress there.
Yeah,
What
that's all.
about you? Your resolution was to get off the sidelines and get into the game, which we already talked about. You definitely have gotten into the game. But
Yeah.
how are you feeling about your
No, totally. I think like that intention really was a guiding light for me this year, and it's cool to close the year. It was such an adventurous and year full of growth and change, and just leaning into new environments and situations, and getting over the hurdle of like getting back into school. So yeah, I haven't set my New Year's resolutions for this year yet, but and I have no idea what they're going to be yet. But it was a good 2024.
Yes, it was a good year. Maybe in our next episode, in the February episode, we can discuss some resolutions or intentions for the year.
Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh, I have so many topics I still have, and Deb is showing up in 2 minutes. Okay, so first one that I just remembered, and I'm hard thought. Silence might be listening.
Oh, yeah.
Silence. We
What?
announced on Monday this week, as we
Mhm.
record in December, that the intent to acquire Silence. So if you're a Silence Pack member joining us soon, we are so excited. So if you're listening, shout
Yeah.
out to you. We're so excited you're here.
Yes. So exciting. Wow, that's wild. I wasn't. I wasn't even thinking about that. But yeah, they
Well,
could be
I was
listening.
thinking about it because I was working on the comms for them last night, and I was going to plug the Howler podcast. Then I was like, oh, and then on the podcast, I have to give a shout out. So if they
Wow.
listen, okay. But I am really excited for this conversation. This was another thing on my little intro agenda that I thought of on my drive.
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid. My dad always told me that I should be an attorney because
Mm.
I never stop asking questions.
Ooh.
And ironically, I didn't go into the legal field, but I am a podcast co host where I ask questions.
We get to ask questions. That's so true.
So, that said, I'm so excited to be having a conversation today with our Vice President of Legal, Deb Sevelius. As the head of commercial legal at Arctic Wolf, Deb is an experienced, collaborative, and globally minded executive leader with a proven record in leading legal and cross functional operational teams that deliver pragmatic win win outcomes that maximize long term value, achieve process efficiencies, and increase revenue. Prior to joining Arctic Wolf, Deb led global sourcing teams within a number of large public companies such as Northwest Airlines, ING, Ecolab, and Thomson Reuters, and has served as an in house or outsourced external commercial counsel for a number of early stage and late stage tech startups, including Code 42 Software. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Oh, we are so excited. I was just telling Chelsea that I had this like full circle thought in the car driving to work today because when I was little, my dad would always tell me, he's like, you need to be a lawyer when you grow up. You ask so many questions. You just like never stop with your questions. And obviously, I did not become a lawyer, but I was just saying, but Chelsea, I co host this podcast with you where I ask questions. The little Mary question asker found her way, just not in the field my dad thought I would head.
Well, hopefully I have answers. I don't know that I'll have all the answers, but like any good lawyer, Mary, are you able to make them up? Like make up the responses, like even when you don't know something? Make
I'm
them
a
up.
terrible liar. I wear my emotions on my face. So if I'm trying to be silly or funny or I'm trying to lie, it just doesn't go well because you can just tell that I'm like trying so hard.
No poker face for Mary.
No,
I'm going to put
I
you next.
probably would have been a bad lawyer had I pursued that field.
That's not true. That's not
So,
true.
okay, I could have found my way.
You could have, and it depends on like what you're practicing.
That's
So
so
it
true.
depends on what kind of area of law, and
Mm.
sometimes not having a poker face or being able to, you know, especially with the HR slant, you might have been
Mhm.
really great at like something related to, more public interest or public policy and those kinds of things.
Okay, Deb. Well, we just dove right in, which was so fun. But we do start every podcast episode with like a fun little game. I think you're a listener, so you know we usually do like trivia or would you rather or something like that with our guests. So I reached out to Andy Hill and I
Oh
said,
no.
and I said,
I'm hopeful that you're going to pick what I want you to pick, not trivia. So,
okay, well, um, and I said, Andy, what do you know about Deb? And first of all, of course, he had only the most like nice, sweetest things to say about you. He's so excited you're on the podcast and that the world will get to know you better. But he told me that you like curling.
I do. My husband and I curl. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So today's trivia is based on curling.
Oh my gosh. And I am not going to know anything. But okay.
It's okay. It was just fun. It's just
Okay.
fun. We always joke when I get these tidbits from other people and I don't like fact check them, like Andy could have been wrong. I mean, he knows you obviously, but we're always waiting for someone to just like jokingly tell us something wrong just so that they can like pull a fast one on their coworker.
Oh,
So far,
well.
so good. So far, so good. Like everyone has told us a true fact, but you never know.
All right. All
Okay,
right.
so we'll just do a quick little curling trivia. We'll all learn a little bit about curling, and then we can get back to the convo. Okay. When and where was curling invented?
Scotland, but I don't know when, like 1600s, 1700s.
Right.
Ding, ding, ding. Well, okay, you got
I know.
Scotland.
Okay.
It is Scotland in the 16th century, so
Oh,
1500s, but you
okay.
were so close. So close.
Well, I don't curl in a kilt, so nor does my husband. Although some people do at the St. Paul Curling Club.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll circle back to
All right.
learning more about you and curling
Oh,
in a second.
okay.
Okay. Curling stones are made out of a special granite that you can only find in two places in the world. Where are those two places?
One of them is Scotland and some island in
Yes.
Scotland, and I don't know about the other place.
Okay, yes. One is like an uninhabited island off the coast of Scotland, and the other one is Trefor Granite Quarry in Wales.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
like still the
I,
UK, I guess.
I didn't know that
Um,
one.
okay, you're doing so well.
I know. I'm just as shocked as you are.
Okay, this one I think you would know, but I don't want to jinx it. How much do curling stones weigh?
42 pounds? 40.
Correct. 42.
Woohoo!
That's your gut. Okay, final question. Curling made its debut during the inaugural Winter Olympics in France in 1924, before being dropped the following Olympics. Curling was then intermittently held solely as a demonstration sport until men's and women's curling officially joined the Olympic program in what year?
It was in the 90s, wasn't it? 92, 94. Like when was it? 80? No, 90s.
I love how you're just gonna wait until I like give you some.
I'm reading your facial. I'm like, am I wrong?
Okay, the answer is 1998.
Oh, I knew
But I think you are somewhat correct in 1992 in a sense that in 1992 they held one of those demonstration
that. Okay.
games, and then the Olympic Committee actually decided later to honor the demonstration medals. So like retroactively 1992 medals became
Okay.
like real
All
medals.
right.
But it
Oh,
officially joined the program in 1998.
It is a sport of the future. You're right.
The past and future.
Well, I started in 99 at the St. Paul Curling Club.
how did you get into it?
A friend of mine from high school, his dad passed away a few years ago, but he was like the oldest curling member at the club at that time, but he was into curling. And so then as we all started to graduate from college and actually had some money, because it's not cheap to become a member of the club,
Mm,
then we started curling. And so when I started, really, there were limited women's leagues. So I curled on a men's open league,
Mhm.
and it was open, but women really didn't curl in those leagues. And so that's how I started.
Well, I feel like we could talk about curling and like your experience curling for so long, but I want to make sure we have time to talk, like to get to know you more and to talk about some other things.
Sure.
So, why don't we transition to kind of the start of your career journey, or even further back than that? Like, tell us a little bit about what young Deb was like. When did you have an interest in law, and kind of like what led you to eventually being here with us at Arctic Wolf?
That's a long story. And I think, like with a lot of people, as you're moving through your career,
Mhm.
right, sometimes it feels really disjointed. Like if I were to go back 20 years ago, the thought that I would be where I am today didn't seem logical. But when you look back, it all seems to make sense, right? So the story kind of builds upon what itself, and somehow you look back and go, oh wow, that all kind of made sense. But even when I was little, I wanted to be a lawyer. My mom was a legal secretary, so I grew up in kind of the experience of the law and
Mhm.
lawyers and different things. But I also was really like the injustice in the world. And,
Mm.
you know, it was probably a little bit more philanthropic in the way that I was thinking about what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to, like, when I was little Deb, I wanted to like save the animals, and I wanted to, you know, protect children. I hated bullying, so I was always like advocating and, you know, sticking up for people. And how that relates to Arctic Wolf and, you know, leading the commercial legal team, kind of a little bit different, right? My path went a little bit in a bit different direction, but, you know, clearly I went to law school. I started in private practice, hated it.
Mm.
There was such a, I didn't like it because I didn't get to actually immerse myself in what was actually happening with a client, right? I just got an issue and then I was dealing with the issue, and I didn't get really the full context. I didn't get to necessarily see how it impacted the entirety of a business or something.
Mm.
And so then I went in-house, and I was at Cargill. So most of my career, I played in large corporate America, Fortune 100, Fortune 500. Obviously, Cargill's private, but started there again, just dealing with issues. And my internal client was being sold off. And so then I went to work at Northwest Airlines with a partner that I worked with in private practice, doing tax and tax controversy work. Landed up finding my way into procurement and sourcing, primarily on the IT side when I was there. So I ran the IT sourcing organization. By the time I left, that's what I was doing. And then through 20 years of my career was really on the buy side. So I was doing a lot of the same things, but I was buying the technology, or I was running indirect sourcing. So I was buying a whole bunch of different things. And then eventually got to Code 42. Code 42, obviously, I met a whole bunch of people that are at Arctic Wolf now, and then came on and am on the sell side now, which, so I'm hearing all the same things that I used to say to the lawyers on the vendor side. And
Mm.
so it all kind of came full circle.
So cool. I was going to ask you what little Deb would have been like advocating for. Would you like play lawyer with your family or friends? Or would you, or like if there was a conflict, would you like want to debate each side or?
I'm not a big debater. So like
Mm.
I always had an opinion about everything, and then I was never afraid to like share that opinion, which I think people at Arctic Wolf probably would attach to. But so I wasn't a big debater. It was like right or wrong, and that's just the way it was. And so like I'm not going to debate with you over that's like a waste of words. So I'm just going to tell you what I think, and then there we go. Right. So I did, yeah. I'm not a big arguer. I just, that takes a lot of energy.
Would you say that's a common characteristic of those that are like practicing like corporate or commercial law?
No, I mean, I definitely think on the characteristics that have served me well, and then that serve my team well, like who is successful in these roles. And I would say that as a general matter, I am really irritated by the traditional lawyer, right? Because the traditional lawyer likes to make complexity out of things, right?
Mm.
Because the more complexity, then, you know, like there's so much, it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, what's the practical implication? Like, like, I don't want to talk about the theoretical, like what if, what about this, and what could happen here? Like, okay, let's just be pragmatic. So I think that there are certain different skill sets that, especially in the commercial organization here, and given the organization and our where we are in our maturity cycle and all those things, like if you're in large corporate America, probably the way in which we do things here is probably not what is looked for in a large corporate environment, right? So like when I was at Cargill in a large corporate America, and the analysis and the explanations and the, you know, writing up like a whole bunch of risk factors and then analyzing all the risks, like that wouldn't work well here, at
Mhm.
least where we are today, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of like here and day to day, when we scheduled this podcast, you jokingly mentioned to Chelsea about like the glamorous life or the glamorous side of legal. We want to know about, like, I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to know about the glamorous side of
Ooh.
commercial legal. Yeah. So tell us, PAC members or people just interested, in general, like what's like the average day in your life or if it's average week in your life.
Well, it is all over the place, right? And it truly is. My team is phenomenal. So I feel really fortunate to have such a good team. Um, and what I would say, like when I hire for the role, right? It's not a traditional legal role. We're enablers. How do we enable the business? So it's not, I say no a lot, but
Mhm.
it's no, and then how do we get it done, right? What can happen and how do we do that? Because obviously sales are important to us, and so how do we enable the business? And having that kind of thought process is really important, and I think that the team does that really, really well, um, which I think is well received by
Mhm.
Mhm.
the rest of the organization in the way that we help problem solve and move things forward. A lot of times what comes and hits our desk is we're in the 11th hour with a particular partner or prospect, and it's how do we close that deal, and how do we get that over the finish line,
Mhm.
and being able to sell the story. So I like to think that commercial legal is the last chapter of the book,
Mhm.
and so hopefully that last chapter, if we've been selling a horror book or thriller book, that hopefully that last chapter matches the premise of that story, because if it doesn't, then
Mhm.
we're going to blow up a deal.
Mhm.
And so really creating that alignment across the organization is
Mhm.
really important to us. Sometimes we hit the mark, sometimes we don't, but for the most part, I think that we've been really good at enabling the business. And so from the glamorous side, we get to see everything, right? We get asked questions. I'd like to think that we are the kind of, sometimes, at least with the respect of things that we handle and do, that we're kind of the connection point cross
Mhm.
departmentally to make sure that we've got buy-in, or that we've got the perspectives from all interested parties in order to put together something that works for the entirety of the organization.
I do feel like I see shout outs for like about you specifically, but and your team like in Windwire. And I feel like salespeople are always like, shout out to Deb or thank you so much for.
Mhm.
So would you say like the majority of what comes across you and your team's desks are contracts to close, like legalities to close deals? Or is it more like on the vendor due diligence side, like the deal's about to close and then there's like a legal questionnaire that.
We get it all, right? GRC is integral. So like the Terra and the NIFIAs, they're the ones that are in the trenches on those questionnaires.
Okay.
And we've also tried to create efficiencies from a process perspective, right? With tools and systems that the SEs and the sales team can use in order to drive some of that. Because I think that having been with Arctic Wolf for 5.5 years, my ability to provide the kind of service that I did when we were younger and when I first joined
Mhm.
is very different than what is sustainable now, given the size of the team and the size of the rest of the organization, right? There's four of us on the commercial legal team at the moment. And so the thought is I would get really involved in those security due diligence questionnaires in the earlier days, right? Nikki and I were doing a lot of that heavy lift. And now that the sales organization has grown and we've gotten global, like it's just not possible. So evolving those processes in a way that allows us to scale
Yeah.
Mhm.
is challenging, right? Because we have new people coming in all the time, and then having to re-educate on those processes and things. But
Mhm.
um, we get involved. We get asked a lot of random questions.
I bet. Well, I was thinking too, I imagine there's periods of time like end of every quarter. I imagine that you and your team are like, yep, it's all hands on deck, all hours of the day.
Mhm.
Outside of that, though, everyone is still trying to close deals and it's always urgent. And some business is trying to get it in before their budget renews or something. So, how do you manage your time in a sense of like, how do you create work life balance for yourself and some like rhythms of normally
Yeah,
when or normalcy when everybody's urgency is put on your plate?
you know, I I think of it a little bit differently. I think maybe. Um, so for me, it's fluidity of life, right? So, and what I hope that I give to my team as well, and what I take for myself is just understanding that, like, well, I might have to, I'm working, I have a call late to support Australia, or I have something going on in the evening. So I need to take an hour here because I have to go and run to the grocery store, or I have to do something, right? So just creating that fluidity and that, the ability to blend your work with your life,
Mhm.
right, is the way that I think about maintaining the balance. Because,
Mhm.
or boy, I mean, I know that the M&A legal team has been working nonstop, obviously, on the latest silence announcement, right?
Mhm.
And and it's just kind of what you do, and then maybe you take a day or two off to
Mhm.
recoup, right? So it's just
Mhm.
creating that fluidity of life, and
Mhm.
because work is part of life, and
Mhm.
life, your family is part of life, and so how do you just create something that works together,
Mhm.
right? So I don't think, oh, I have to work 8 to 5, and if I work more than 8 to 5, then my life is out of balance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we've heard similar themes from some of our other leaders that we've had on too. So it's definitely I think probably a healthy perspective to have because I've heard a lot of conversation around this idea of like work life balance and that they have to be equal is just like unrealistic and then puts even more pressure on us if we
Mhm.
feel like we're not achieving said balance.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, then you're like, I'm failing at that too. And it's like, and I
Exactly.
also, I manage a remote team. I mean, I'm at my home office today because it's
Hmm.
snowing here in Minnesota, and I was not going to try to
Yeah.
battle my way into the office this morning. Um, but as with a remote team, right? There are managers who are not comfortable with that. They like to see people in seats and butts in seats, and that's how you prove that an individual is doing their share and doing what they need. I started in an environment where there was no remote working, right? I was always going to the office. You didn't do work outside the office. And then as my career had progressed,
Mhm.
eventually it became a little bit more flexible in that regard. Obviously,
Mhm.
COVID changed a whole bunch in that world, but really as a manager and a leader, learning how to manage your resources, even when you're not seeing them on an everyday basis, I think
Mhm.
just creates more of that fluidity in my mind, right? Is really being effective in managing your team when you're not seeing them, and then allowing for that kind of flexibility, but making sure that obviously their performance is
Mhm.
on par for what your expectations are.
Well, I was just going to say on the topic of like the work life fluidity and stuff. I was going to ask, we know that you have your Friday night curling ritual, but do you have any other like rituals that I just imagine in for your role, whereas there's so much like pressure on the other side of the asks. Like, I don't know if it's like harder to
Mhm.
say like this
It's
can
hard to
be
turn
too
off.
morning. Yeah. Or like, you know what, I can take this pause because I can just get to it XYZ. Um, like I curious your thoughts on how you manage that. But then also do you have like what are your rituals and like your work life fluidity that like just keep you
Hmm.
happy and healthy and balanced?
Oh, well, I have a great team. So, like, when I have to take time, there was a time where I would be sitting in the curling parking lot working end of quarter deals because, for whatever reason, the end of quarter, end of year always seemed to fall on a Friday night. Um, so there was a while there where I didn't, and now I have this, you know, awesome team who can pick up that slack,
Mhm,
right?
Mhm.
And so that's amazing.
mhm.
Um, and then I'm really bad. I wish I had like hobbies, or I talk to my friends about this all the time. I'm like, I really need to think about hobbies. Like, I don't really have any hobbies. I am,
What
I
curling
am,
is such a
I,
cool hobby. That is such a flex.
Yeah, at least you have one. Some adults don't have anything. Like, at least you have curling.
And it's
well,
you've done it for so
curling,
long.
and it's only part time during the year. It's not even like,
Yeah.
but I think about that. Like, I need other things. I like um, to do. I'm a medical junkie, so like I like to research. It's like I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor right now, not because I have diabetes, but just because I think that's a super kind of
Okay.
cool like biofeedback, and like I can like learn like stupid things.
Yeah.
And then I bought this new device that's called Muse, and it reads your brain waves, and it can
Wow.
train you how to like meditate and turn your brain off.
No
I
way.
am not good at that. I'm gonna tell you.
Whoa.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to like figure out ways to be able to like calm my brain and
Yeah.
reach
Yeah.
some kind of Zen state. When I did it the first time, they said, you know, most people, when they try this for the first time, they're only at 40 some percent. And which means that like 40% of the time you're in a calm and your brain is in a restful state.
Okay.
Mine was 27%. So, yeah. So I
Yeah.
have room for improvement, and I'm practicing
An area of opportunity for you.
that. Right.
Okay,
Although,
this is such an interesting fun fact about the like interest in like understanding your body more. But that's so cool.
well, it was either I was going to be a lawyer or I was going to be a doctor.
Mm,
So,
okay, okay.
like, one of my things.
I gotcha. Okay. I really quickly wanted to go back to when you were kind of briefly touching on, where you're a small team of four, where the company has continued to get bigger. We're a global company, adding more and more countries. I'm just curious, like, what are some of those challenges, like from the legal perspective, from your team's perspective, as we just get bigger and bigger? I'm assuming you all have to brush up on different policies, laws, etc. So yeah, just curious what that journey has been like.
Well, I can say most days I feel like I'm over my skis. So
Mm.
when Nick says, we're going to be uncomfortable, get used to being uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable.
Like me
So,
over
um,
here.
but part of it too is just, um, it's being able to like have that executive functioning and executive thought process, right? I don't know, nor do I expect my team to know all of the answers, but we can think through, okay, what are the risks, how does that normally work in what we do know, and then how can we make decisions that hopefully make sense for the organization. And then where we don't know, we're seeking outside counsel help, right? There in the EU, there are so many different regulations from a security perspective that
Mhm.
we're learning about, that we're trying, some of them are product related, some of them are security related. And then there are different like certifications that the customers want us to be on. And part of it is really just as a business deciding strategically what makes sense. What are the business opportunities? How do we allocate resource time to be able to do X, Y, and Z? Because there's limited amount of resources, right? And so we can't do everything, but what makes the most impact for the organization, and being able to start thinking strategically about that as we go forward. And I think my experience has been is that's what we're striving for, right? We're trying
Mhm.
to collect the data. We're trying to understand impacts for some of that and what does and what would make the most meaningful impact to Arctic wolf
Mhm.
and how we, drive our business. So,
Mm.
but for the most part, we just feel like we're, flying by the seat of our pants sometimes.
Well, everybody, every single person I feel like at Arctic Wolf and leadership says like the number one quality you have to work here is like being able to like willing to learn because in cybersecurity in general, like
It
things
moves so
are
fast.
changing. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that across the org we all feel it in different ways, especially when we're at a company that's growing so fast and all over the world.
Well, and my philosophy really is like, you put your stake in the ground and then you're ready, willing, and able to move it as you learn more, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I always want me and my team to be moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the destination,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we're never going to reach that destination. But how do we go, okay, given what we know, given what's happening and where we are, because maybe we're in the 11th hour with a particular customer or whatever, right? There are circumstances that are driving decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we go, okay, this is where I think it is. And we're just going to continue to evolve and improve and move the needle in the right direction.
Mhm.
And that's just, as long as you're not thinking that it has to be 100% correct, then
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
then it makes it a little less uncomfortable
Mhm.
in with your insides to know, what, we're making the decision that we know at
Mm-hmm.
this moment in time with the information that we have. And um,
Yeah.
if the risk is that big, then we should be obviously reaching out and figuring out what
Mhm.
maybe the more right answer is,
Mm-hmm.
um, with experts that know that. But yeah,
Mhm. I love the visual of the stake in the ground, but we can move the stake
Yeah,
because
me
it's like we have to be like rooted and grounded in our decision, confident we're making the best decision with the information we have.
right.
But once we learn something, we can just move it an inch or, whatnot. So
right.
I love that visual.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of the moves and moving the needle, like what makes you excited about our mission at Arctic Wolf to end cyber risk and your role, you and your team's role in that?
Well, so you know, any dream of a lawyer is to mitigate risk, right? So
Oh,
the whole
that's great.
concept of ending cyber risk, like what are it's like it's our dream, like risk, we're ending it. So for the commercial legal, right? How do we end risk? And then how do we help mitigate the risk for Arctic wolf as we're pursuing that mission of ending cyber risk, right? So it really kind of builds upon one another, I think, in what makes us excited, right? And cybersecurity is just in and of itself, for someone like me who, wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted to right all the wrong and, the injustices in the world and, make the world a better place. In some ways, ending cyber risk, like
Mhm.
stopping threat actors from doing something nefarious with people's information or systems and different things. I mean, it just continues to resonate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said
Yeah.
earlier, like the path was different than what you thought, but it all makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Because I would get that a lot early in my career. Because I'd be in sourcing, but you're a lawyer. Why are you doing sourcing? Why are you running indirect source? I'm like, well, because I'm negotiating, I'm,
Yeah.
reading agreements, I'm drafting agreement. Like it's legal, although I'm not acting in a legal capacity for the organization.
Hmm.
And people didn't really grasp that, right? Sourcing and supply chain, they all took a different path. And
Mm.
it just all eventually kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
So,
That was great. We're going to take a quick pause right now to hear a security win from one of our security services pack members.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Jacob Robbins. I'm one of the Tier 2 security engineers here at the San Antonio office in Texas, where me and my colleagues work together to help harden our customers' cyber infrastructure. My duties particularly include triaging customer data and alerting on any nefarious or malicious activity we may observe within the customer's environment. User compromise is typically the first avenue for a lot of cyber attacks that we see, just given its simplicity, minimal work. It's arguably one of the most common forms of compromise we see, specifically business email compromises. Just as an example, any employee in any given company sometimes will utilize their business email to sign up for a service or any kind of promotion, just anything that requires the use of an email address. Unfortunately, these websites sometimes don't have the best security, and so their email and sometimes their password gets leaked onto the internet. Not everyone adheres to good cyber hygiene, so sometimes passwords get reused, or sometimes they're very, very simple with little to no complexity. And the win that I kind of want to talk about today is exactly that. About 2 months ago, we had a Tier 1 engineer who was triaging events within a customer's environment, noticed a restricted country login. It's an alert that we have that denotes the geographical location of where the login occurred. And since this customer was primarily based in North America, we had rules in place that would alert on anything observed outside of the United States or Canada. Now, there could be plenty of reasons why we get these alerts. The employee could be on vacation, they need to check something work-related. Maybe they're utilizing a VPN and it gives them a different IP address from where they're actually located. So geolocation isn't an exact science just due to the nature of IP addresses and network address translation. Just the reuse of IPs make it very difficult, kind of muddies the water when you're trying to parse the truth out of the alerts that we come across. And so we utilize a lot of tools here at Arctic Wolf to try to find the source of truth regarding a lot of IP addresses, just common practice will do. And in doing so, we discovered that the Singapore IP address was actually originating from Russia. Now, any kind of observed traffic from Russia is always a red flag from us, and when we see it, our standard procedures went into play. We reached out, called to the customer, wanting to get remediation performed on this user right away, because the user was also an admin account, so any kind of actions were taken from this account could be very critical. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a hold of the customer the first time around when we were calling them. Not even 2 minutes after we placed those calls, they call us back, and I spoke with the customer firsthand, gave them all the details, all the events that we were seeing from this user, letting them know we're keeping this user under close observation, making sure we don't see any secondary indicators of compromise. We did see the account attempting to create a two-way communication between where they were in Russia to the customer's environment, potentially to exfiltrate data. Thankfully, all the other security measures the customer did have in place, such as MFA and just general firewall rules, they were really able to isolate the malicious actor before he was able to perform any real meaningful action. Ultimately, all the user sessions were terminated, the user's password got reset, so we essentially forced the malicious actor out of the network. Customer was very thankful for the call. If we hadn't called them, the customer probably would have not known about this, and it would have gone unnoticed. Malicious actor having access to an admin account for so long can be truly disastrous. Persistence is the name of the game with these cyber criminals trying to gain access to customer networks. And I really like reiterating this story because it really reinforces the notion that we as the cyber security professionals need to remain vigilant. Stuff that you come across may initially appear benign, but sometimes can turn out to be a true positive. And this is a prime example of overlooking some very minor details could have very disastrous results.
We always do like to touch on one of our culture tenets in the episode. And you've touched a little bit about, you've talked a lot about your team, but we did want to talk about the stronger together culture tenet and just curious like how you live that out, if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as an organization as a whole, I mean, there's nothing that the commercial legal team does without input and guidance and collaboration with every other department within the organization, whether it be GRC, product, sales ops, the engineering team. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, CSM, right? Customer success. Like we are all in it together, right?
Mhm.
And if sales doesn't bring us deals, we can't close deals. And then Arctic Wolf as a whole is not successful, right? So like we all play a part. We all have a position on the team that we all have to fulfill.
Mhm.
So from that perspective, stronger together is obviously very clear with my own immediate team. And if they're watching this, and I hope that they agree with what I'm about to say. But I do feel like we all win together, right? There's nothing that my team does that I wouldn't roll up my sleeves and do myself. So we just all play together and we are all winning together. And so that's just the way that I look at my immediate team, but
Mhm.
stronger together certainly permeates the entirety of the organization, right? We all play.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I mean, I always say this. I'm like, well, this is my favorite thing, but it is such a special thing about working at the PAC. Every part is appreciated. I don't feel like there's like a certain, I mean, we love us too on the front lines, but I don't feel like there's any like golden department that is like treated better than any other. Like no matter what part you play, like it's appreciated and valued for what we bring to the entirety of the org and our goals together. So
I would agree. I mean, people are, for the most part, are phenomenal here, right? We have some amazing people that are here and people that I call friends. So it's really great.
it's a good crew. Okay, one quick one, last one before we move to rapid fire. Tell us a little, like you've talked about your team and rolling up your sleeves and doing the things that they would do or they do, and winning together. But tell us a little bit about leadership. How do you define it? How has it evolved over time for you?
Leadership to me is just creating an environment that people choose to want to be part of. Right. So creating opportunities for the team, feeling like that my team feels like they're supported, that I have their back, that, that we're all in it together. So that to me is like there are things like through the course of my career that I've learned, like authenticity to me is really important as a leader. Having grown up in very command and control kind of organizations where I got the party line sometimes from leaders, it really created a distrust because I knew that it was wrong. So like for me, being able to present authentically kind of the corporate message in a way that I can still gain buy-in, right? Like I might not agree, but how do we do this in a way that everybody feels good about, I think is important to me. One of the things that I learned when I was just starting as a manager, right? I'm a pretty driven individual. So I'm all about getting stuff done and jumping right in. And the guidance that I got from a friend and a manager or leader that I worked for was like, hey, Deb, you got to ask people before you just jump into work. You got to ask them how their day was or how it's going or what did they do last night? And I'm like, oh, and I have to tell you, like, it is still like something that I think about and I go, oh, wait, I have to like ask, how did you do? Like, how was that last night? Or what did you have for dinner? Or how's your child doing? Or, so like those things, it's just, some of those things just stick with you. And it's things that I am not perfect at, but I continue to try.
But there are certain people out there too that don't want to do the small talk, especially,
True.
it's your seventh meeting of the day. It's like, let's just get to it,
Yeah.
You
Like, I want to go home. Let's do that.
Literally. Literally. Uh, okay, well, we have approached the rapid fire
Woo.
questions, which are our final questions of the episode. These are fun ones, not that our other questions aren't fun, but these are just first thing that comes to your head. Okay.
Okay.
Best concert of your life.
I'm not a concert person.
Okay.
So I went to Billy Joel when I was in high
Ooh.
school, and I was like up against the stage, and he touched my hand.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
That's an amazing concert story.
Yeah.
Okay. Your favorite word.
Oh, I have words that I use way too often that shouldn't be my favorite word. I would say, I have a word that makes me happy because it was a word that my kids, we used to teach them when they were little. We would teach them weird words, and people go, "Why are you teaching them that word?" And I'm like, "It's just a word." But pensive. So we would say, how do you, like when we were teaching about emotions, like, show me your sad face, show me your, happy face.
Yeah.
And then we go, show me your pensive face. And so then we teach them and then go, so, pensive makes me all happy.
Yeah. Pensive is a good word. Even now that I'm thinking about it, like even without your heartwarming story, I like the word pensive.
Word. And honestly, how adorable to hear like a 5-year-old tell you that they're pensive at the moment.
Right. And they still okay, they're 21 and soon to be 20 today. And I'll go, oh, remind me again, what does pensive look like? And then if they'll entertain that, then they'll get with it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Okay, for those that are listening, it's kind of like a profile with your finger pointing towards your mouth with kind of a coy little.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. A thinking face with the
face.
Yeah. Okay. A place on your bucket list.
Australia.
Ooh,
Australia.
Okay.
I need to find a reason to get to Australia.
Hey, we do have a bunch of people there.
I know. Every time we're in town, I say, I gotta get to Australia. Although I was watching something like, okay, I'm mindlessly scrolling Instagram. I don't know about anybody else, but there was something about only in Australia, and it was all of these crazy things.
Oh,
like
Bears and
bugs and snakes and kangaroo that just come in your house and koala bear. I'm like,
koalas are apparently kind of aggressive.
Really?
They look so cute.
I know. I don't know. But I mean, kangaroos.
The bugs are what gets me. Like, they have spiders like the size of your head. And
absolutely not. No. But still want you to. We'll still try and find a business case for you to get there.
Okay, all right.
Australia.
I did do that.
Okay. What's something that people often get wrong about you?
I would say that personally, I don't negotiate for anything.
Oh, wait. So it's your way or the highway personally?
No, I just go, oh, you want this much money? Here you go.
Oh,
you
see.
Okay.
My husband is a negotiator. I'm like, we're buying a car. Yeah, you go deal with it. I don't negotiate anything.
Okay. Last question. Give us a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that has brought you joy.
My kids, just watching them. They're both home, so I get that. And they have this weird way of communicating with each other that my husband and I kind of they've always been that way. And they would go to school together, and then they wouldn't be in the same class, but then they come home and it was like they hadn't seen each other for 5 years, right? And just like so I have that now, and I would say that that's probably one of them. I mean, there's just so many, but that one.
That's so sweet.
You're so sweet. I always love ending on that question.
Oh, I just said, are they Irish twins? You said one's 20 and one's 21.
15 and a half months. So no, but close.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I'm actually honestly so sad that we have to wrap up. Like, this was so fun talking to you, Deb, and I feel like I still have so many more questions for you.
Well, I really appreciate you thinking I would be interesting enough to ask me to be on the podcast. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Everything you and your team do for the pack, we really appreciate it. Truly couldn't do it without you. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You guys too.
Okay, that was such a fun conversation with Deb. I truly meant it when I told her that I could have kept talking to her for 5 more hours. She's just so personable and fun.
Agreed. And I feel like, yeah, there was questions I held back because I was like, okay, we got time for rapid fire and wrapping.
Same. I feel like in that first chunk, we could have just kept asking more and more and more. But it was like, oh, we should get to some leadership and some other things. So
yeah.
Okay, well, with that, thank you all for listening. If you are part of the pack currently, in January, we are hosting our annual Well Wolf Wellness Challenge. So make sure you read the Howler newsletter for more information on that. And also make sure you're in the Well Wolf Slack channel for more there.
Yes, we hope this finds you having a great start to 2025. Wishing goodness and all the good things for you this year. We will talk to you in February. Oh, and if you want to join the pack, you want to join our unique and vibrant community on Mission to End Cyber Risk, arcticwolf.com/careers. Talk to you in February.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.